Welcome to this tutorial for the new Microsoft Flight Simulator F-18. It goes without saying, this is not nearly as detailed as the DCS F-18, but with that said, we're going to do a full flight, so let's jump in and get started. Startup is much simpler than the DCS module, so on the right panel you switch on the battery, you then head over to the left panel and you switch on the APU. Once the APU is available, as indicated by the green light, you can crank the left engine starter and the left engine will come to life. These are the sort of numbers you want to see on the engine display that indicate a good start on engine number 1. Then repeat the process with engine number 2. And while we wait for engine number 2 to start, we're going to do some of the system stuff here. So on the right MFD, we're going to switch that to our HSI mode. And we're also going to activate waypoint and sequence. So your flight sim flight plan is loaded as a series of waypoints, and if you press the sequence button, that will give you your sort of magenta line as it would be in any other plane. You can also adjust the scale of the HSI, and if you go to the data tab, you can also scroll through the waypoints, which, as I said, were loaded from your flight simulator flight plan. Just make sure set it back to 0 before you fly. So by now we have a good start on both engines. Once the engines have started, the APU will switch itself off. All we now need to do is set our flaps to half for takeoff. So once we're lined up on the runway, I'm going to switch the center MFD to the autopilot mode, because it will make it easier for us to switch on some autopilot modes as we climb. Then it's as easy as bringing the throttles up to full and rotate at around 160 knots. On positive rate, I go gear up and flaps auto shortly after. Now set your attitude to the sort of climb attitude that you want to achieve and press the FPAH autopilot mode, which is kind of an attitude hold. We're going to increment the waypoint on the right MFD to waypoint 1, and clicking the topmost autopilot button on the center MFD will put the plane into nav mode, where it will follow the waypoint that you've selected. We'll take a look at some of this navigation stuff. So on the HUD you can see the distance to your next waypoint is displayed, and on the right MFD the time to your next waypoint is displayed. When you reach a waypoint, the plane goes into heading mode, so you just increment to the next waypoint and put it back in nav mode. If for some reason you miss or overfly a waypoint, it's no big deal, just keep incrementing the waypoints until you see the timer on the right MFD start to count down. That's when you know you're following your plan from your current position. When you reach your desired cruising altitude, you put the plane into altitude hold mode, which will hold your current barometric altitude, and the plane will level off and continue to fly at your current altitude. So now we're at cruise, it's time to look at some of the more fun stuff. To light the afterburners, bring the throttles all the way forward and hit the afterburner hotkey. You will need to assign an afterburner hotkey in the sim for this to work. When you want to exit afterburner mode, simply bring the throttles back. And the next time you go full throttle, you will just be in normal full throttle mode. To reactivate the afterburners, you'll need to press the afterburner hotkey again. When you reach your top of descent, usually as instructed by ATC, just start pitching the nose down and you'll see the plane go into the attitude hold mode, and it will hold this attitude as you descend. It's also a good idea here to bring the throttles back. And once you reach your desired descent altitude, just re-enter barometric altitude hold mode, and the plane will level off at the altitude you've descended to. As you level off, you can also bring the throttles back up just to maintain your speed. As you reach your final waypoint and final descent altitude, it's probably time to configure for landing. So the plane tends to be happy around 160 to 200 knots in full landing config with flaps and gear extended. So now we are in landing config near our destination airport. I'll deactivate the autopilot with my preset hotkey, so I've got one on my Airbus joystick, and I think this plane does have a disengage switch on the stick as well. With that done, we fly the approach manually, so I find the velocity vector on the HUD, that's the little circle in the middle that's moving up and down, as a really good indicator to show you where you're expected to touch down. So this isn't the tidiest landing, but this is a successful touchdown and the end of a successful full flight in the F-18. This now brings our tutorial to its end, so I do hope you found it useful. If you did, please drop me a like and feel free to subscribe, as I do make this kind of content fairly regularly. Thank you for watching, take care, and I'll see you next time.